Welcome to the NanoCap podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernlin, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of NanoCap companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of NanoCap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi, everyone. On this week's episode, we have David Vanderveen, the president of Prenetics, stock ticker PRE. Prenetics is a leading health science company and is dedicated to advancing consumer and clinical health. David, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, stoked to be here. Thanks for having me, Will.
From your background with your college and such, it appears you're a Midwesterner. Is that correct?
I was born in Detroit, lived on the East Coast when I was little. My dad was in med school at Johns Hopkins, then in the military for Vietnam. So we lived in Baltimore and D.C., but mainly grew up in West Michigan in Grand Haven, which is straight across from Milwaukee, and then went to college in the Chicago area and back in Grand Rapids in West Michigan.
Nice. I was going through your LinkedIn. I noticed you had a few different jobs here and there, but then eventually you kind of fell into the beverage industry. What originally attracted you to the beverage industry and specifically the health beverage industry?
Sure. Well, I started my early career. I was in the wine industry for a while in the Napa Valley, and then shifted. I was in a laboratory where we were doing a lot of really advanced chemistries and biochemistries, and it was very tech driven. So I ended up during the 90s getting heavily involved in technology and into the dot-coms. And part of a large dot-com, I bought an energy drink distributorship from Red Bull. And because we gave it away to a lot of the people that we worked with, we were managing co-location or internet data centers. And so we were just giving it away as part of that process to attract new customers. And after the dot-com meltdown, I sort of wanted to get out of tech. It was so volatile back, going through the dot-com boom. And so I was hunting for something to do outside and found a nutrition company in Southern California that needed a lot of work, had had been going through some difficult times. And they were doing low glycemic sports nutrition. And one of the things I said is, why aren't we doing something in the hottest category right now, which is beverage, specifically energy drink? I think Red Bull was doing about 250 million at the time. This is nothing today, but it seemed like a lot then. And just on this rocket ship ride. And a lot of people were trying to copy them. And my theory has always been, never be derivative, never just copy somebody. You've got to do something unique and different, but find a space that's hot and growing. Pioneering is very hard work, but if somebody's already a first mover, it's a great place to step into and bring new value, add new customers to. And so we created the XS brand, XS energy drinks. We later removed it from that initial business because the initial business was just too damaged. But that became a big success story that took most of my focus for almost 20 years.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about XS Energy. So you said a little bit of a success. $400 million a year revenue, 60 countries. That sounds pretty sweet to me. Yeah. But I'm kind of curious. You eventually do get acquired by Amway. Yeah. But at the same exact time, Amway was also one of your main distribution channels.
Yeah.
So kind of talk to me a bit about just the negotiation process when the other side transparently knows your customers maybe even better than you sometimes and such.
Well, or what's funny is we actually knew their customers better than they did, which is why we were able to scale and grow inside their business. I would say, probably the interesting thing for us and for them was we found this partnership early on that probably surprised both of us a bit. I was an Amway distributor. I had very good friends, had been successful, had friends who were very successful with Amway in the best possible way. And we decided, instead of trying to sell an energy drink to Amway or through Amway or to their distributors, we wanted to just completely transform the experience of being in business for yourself. And, at the time when I joined, it was in my 20s. You had to wear a suit and tie. You had to show up to these, hotel ballrooms, and it was whiteboard trainings. It was horribly boring. It was not relevant or compelling to a young person anymore. But it was there were ways you could actually learn a lot about, how to connect with people and sell and help other people be successful before you were. But most importantly, I guess what we were thinking about is, I'm living in the Bay Area. I'd bet just been through the dot-com revolution, living in the Napa Valley. Nobody wore a suit and tie unless you were like from some religion, some weird religion, or if you were, a retail banker. And I was like, well, what the fuck are we doing, right? And so I think a lot of what we did is we said, look, no more suits and ties. If we're going to get together to teach and train people, why don't we do it in a club or do it at some cool outdoor event? And why don't we tie it into this brand? And so XS became the calling card for, I'm in business for myself. Try one of these 2 flavors. If you like one, we can talk more. If you don't, no big deal. But we had great flavors, great experiences with XS. No sugar. We were the first one to be sugar-free, first ones to do mega doses of B12. So you actually had this much nicer energy lift. A lot of people copied us on those things over time, which is a great compliment. But it was this whole idea of, how do we transform the experience of an energy drink? How do we transform the experience of being in business for yourself? And how do we make this brand the cool way to introduce people to business ownership? And so when we would sample and people say, oh, these taste great, where do you get them? How much do they cost? A distributor could say, well, I get them for my own business. I'm happy to sell them to you. But if you'd like to, invest your sweat and get some equity in what we're doing here, we've got this really unique opportunity. And it just made it much simpler, easier. And the other thing that I figured out, was I've always been a fan. I studied philosophy in college. I've always been a fan of phenomenology and existentialism, what they call continental philosophy, which is all about how we experience the world. And I think in brands where you can, especially consumer brands, where you can really differentiate yourself is by a transformative experience, because that trumps all logic. It trumps all reasons. It trumps everything. So when people are like, wow, this is great, I love it, I want to share this with my friends, I'd like to I was at this cool event with these fun people. All of a sudden, like whatever somebody heard about Amway or whatever somebody thought about direct selling sort of didn't matter, because you just had this great experience that worked really well. So what are we really talking about? And so for us, it was about transforming the entire experience of being in business for yourself, of what direct selling could be, of how to do it correctly, and how to make it fun so that it didn't feel like work. I think anytime you're going to build something successful, it's going to take a ton of effort. And the question is, if you can make it fun, like playing a sport at a high level, then it doesn't feel like, like you had to kill yourself to do it.
So I got a couple of questions about the direct selling business model.
Sure.
So my first question is specifically for you selling like cans of liquid.
Yeah.
For you to be able to get it to your distributors and then them get it to a customer, the shipping prices must have been like 20, 30% of the cost of goods sold. How is there still margin for there to be like all these different distributors in there?
Yeah, so I think, that was part of what we were able to leverage was the Amway distribution network. And, we were probably one of the first people to really figure out how to sell a beverage in that network, which, now everybody always used to say you can't do DTC with beverage, right? And they're half right, because if you follow the traditional shipping model, it won't work. With Amway, I'll give you one example. With Amway, what we figured out were ways to do, ship 12 packs, smaller formats. We were only, 8-ounce cans back then. And also leverage the other things that people were buying. So there's a couple ways to think about it. So one is, if we were just shipping a 12-pack of XS on its own, pretty expensive. Of course, in their network with their shipping rates, cheaper than anybody else on the planet. At that time, cheaper than Amazon even. And we weren't shipping it, next day. We were shipping it, via longer periods of time. It would take days to get to people back then. What we figured out over time was that, one, if other lighter products shipped with it, for example, lipsticks or supplements or other types of things in the same box, obviously those products basically ship for free, right? So there's combined benefits that happen. We also did something I'm kind of proud of. We figured out that, one, the more product people had to share with other people, the more product they were going to move. And that's sort of what a distributor lives to do. And so we put together a program called Buy 5, Get 1 Free. You bought 5 12-packs and you got a free 12-pack back when our average distributor was buying maybe 2 to 3 12-packs at a time. And so we doubled our sales, but we gave away a free 12-pack if you ordered 5. And we also realized that if we shipped 6 in a master carton, we actually saved about $10 when our cost of goods was less than half that. So we made more money shipping 6 than 5, and the distributors got all of this value. It was a $26 value per 12-pack. The distributor got all this extra value for buying 5, and we taught them, don't drink that free case. share those 12 cans to sell all the other product that you have, because you'll move all of it if you do that. And we had very specific programs. We had a whole online program called Use One, Share One, where we would just, on social, I would do it. I would show me sharing product with people I didn't know, them saying, wow, this is cool. Where do I get it? I would go through this process. I'd show them how this is how we do it. And then I would nominate other people to do it. They would nominate people. It became sort of a viral way to drive the business. And we would do it not only with new products, but with existing products we had. And it just became a really, really successful model for us and for the business that helped leaders, do more than they would otherwise.
Oh, yeah. And I can just imagine, too, if your distributors could actually scale up, the second that they get a pallet instead of a UPS package, then all of a sudden the margins are killer. So
we actually, a really good friend of mine still today, Tony Papalardo, who's younger, he's in his 40s, has one of the biggest, most successful businesses in Amway in North America, was just with me last weekend here in Florida. And, they put together, we worked with them, him and his father, Vinny, to put together a pallet program where you could actually purchase pallets of our product if you had a big enough business at a very significant savings and much more margin for the distributor. And of course, if you have the product, you will move the product. That's sort of the secret of it, right? It's a beverage. So if you've got it and your team has it, they're probably, I used to say, put it in the front seat of your car next to you. It'll talk to you. It'll say, hey, you got to move me today. And you'll actually share it. And you'll actually move it. If you don't have it sitting there, guess what? It's not going to move.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I come from an Amazon background, so I'm just thinking of how much they charge us for a pallet.
Yeah. Amazon probably had better rates.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah. But yeah, back then though, no. Okay, you're selling through Amway. The distribution model has this these middlemen, salesmen all around the country trying to get people involved with the brand and such. How do you balance, as the CEO of that company, and then we'll eventually get into Prenetics, but how do you balance for a company like that if you get a call from like 7-Eleven for 10,000 cases? Do you say, hey, Amway, we love working with you, but we got to have a partner here? Or you say, Amway, there's fire underneath your feet now, we got other people out there? Or do you say 7-Eleven, get lost?
My background is just because I had been a distributor, I knew how important it was for those distributors to feel like they had something exclusive and unique. We actually pushed some boundaries on that later with our Halo product we did. But, for me, it was early on, it was, we need to we launched with Amway in 2002, non-exclusively into their third-party catalog of, other products where they sold Cheerios and other things. We decided as Excess to go exclusive with them before they signed an exclusivity agreement with us. And so we demonstrated what we wanted the behavior to be there. And then in 2003, we signed a mutually exclusive agreement. They wouldn't sell other energy drinks. We wouldn't sell to other people. And the reason we did that was, I could get maybe some orders from 7-Eleven or other distributors. The cost of scaling a traditional beverage and traditional DSD distribution is so costly. I mean, you'll have to generate $60 to $80 million in sales before you break even in a traditional beverage and traditional distribution, where we were profitable day one with Amway because they would buy containers. They would pay us at that time. They were willing to pay us, and we negotiated a deal where they would pay us in 2 weeks from that container hitting their dock, and we didn't have to pay our manufacturers for 30 to 60 days. And so it gave us, that basically allowed us to scale the business without any debt, and allowed us to keep our margins thin enough to fit into the Amway network and to be able to ship across the country. So we had a profitable business running on, lower margins than maybe other beverage companies, but instantly profitable. And it allowed us to scale. I think we scaled to over $50 million in our first 18 months doing that.
Yeah, not to bring it up again, but no, it does remind me a lot of third-party selling on Amazon, where you can't have 2-day shipping right off the bat if you're just mom and pop shop. You're going to go broke if you try to do all the different things that they do. And then also that they help drive the traffic, just like Amway helps drive traffic and eyeballs to your product too. And so the combination of helping with freight and logistics, helping with financing, and then also driving eyeballs to your product, it's kind of a match made in heaven for a company like yours to allow to scale infinitely since you have the right payment terms.
Yeah. And we knew their audience better than they did. We were already top distributors who people look to for information. So we had this unique ability, me and my partners, Greg Duncan and Scott Kuhn, we had this unique ability to go to these big stadium events and get stage time and not talk about a product, but talk about how using and sharing this was going to help them hit all their key growth bonuses at the highest levels and people just starting. And so I think that was just a very big differentiator. And then we got into cool merchandise, killer shirts and these really fun events where I had one distributor, kind of complain to me. He goes, we have this whole weekend event going on and I have all these young people who just show up for the excess party. And I was like, yeah, you're welcome. I don't know what to tell you about the rest of your event, but we're making it awesome. So let's run with what we got,
So the very last question until we move on. Does Amway now, or while you're working there after the acquisition and such, do they have like an entrepreneur in residence type position, or do they have a way where they take the top salespeople and say, hey, what do you think a brand that our kind of customers would like? And do they have kind of like a scout system like that? Because that sounds like a match made in heaven for them, that they have these people who first boots on the ground, then learn the customers, then help them scale with new product ideas.
When I was there working closely with some of the people I'd worked with for years, that was sort of what Excess brought to Amway was, I was sort of the entrepreneur. Part of the reason that they required me to run the business through the earnout was not only to scale the business throughout their entire system, but also to help them transform. 20% of my time was supposed to be transforming how Amway, worked on its own. The organization heavily resisted entrepreneurial input. So I probably didn't, contribute as much as I'd hoped and that the team that had brought me in had hoped. And I would say that when they brought in Milan Pant to run the company as a new CEO, he ultimately, I would say, resisted more than most. And, the right handwriting was on the wall that he was just going to focus on Neutralite, wasn't going to focus or invest in Excess. And there was really, then what was I going to do there, right? I would just be a distraction or sort of an annoyance. And so that's when I left. I was like, hey, look, I don't want to, there's a new person coming in that I don't fit into his vision for the world. So this is a great time for me to go do other things, other places.
No, 100%. Do everyone a favor. Be the mature one. Fast forward, you work at / are CEO of a couple other energy drink companies, and then you end up as president of Prenetics.
Yeah.
So how did you first get introduced to Prenetics? What made you excited about the job? And then lastly, in your own words, like, what does Prenetics do?
Sure. So at post at Amway, I started getting involved more in private equity and sort of operating and investing, short-term contracts in places where I thought I could move the needle. Did really well at New Age, did the same thing for ItWorks. And then, I've been kind of doing that off and on. It's funny. So Prenetics reached out to me via LinkedIn, which is sort of unusual. I appreciate LinkedIn, but rarely see much value come from it. And so, I thought it was a scam. And I looked up Prenetics online, and it was just sort of semi-generic information about a life sciences company in Southeast Asia. I was like, why are they reaching out to me? And they were asking me to be on their board. I finally talked to the CEO and founder, Danny Young, who's fantastic. And he was like, look, I couldn't put this in an email, but we're doing this deal with David Beckham to launch a nutrition brand. We really want to get into consumer growth in North America and thought you could help us. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I do. I wish I'd, understood that all earlier. So I started spending time. I joined the board in July of 2020 last year, and then spent a week traveling with Danny, helping him solve a number of issues in North America, setting up business and getting the right relationships. And then he asked me if I could do more. I was doing some consulting for another company at the time, and I just said, yeah, don't have any conflicts, love to do it. And what I saw, that the thing that really struck me was it felt a lot like Excess in a way, right? Where AG1 was a big mover in this space of sort of all-in-one powdered beverage supplementation. It's an incredible product. They've done a great job pioneering. And Danny was coming into that category where there were a few other players at the time. There's Grunes and there's Bloom and a few other players, but it's a booming category. There's lots of opportunity to do something different, differentiate yourselves. And I felt like what they were doing was meaningfully different with a lot more value. Not only because they have somebody famous to help amplify the story, but really the product itself stood out to me differently and better than what was happening in the category. And so that to me was like, yeah, I think we can scale this fast. And then the other thing I would say is, Prenetics just has tons of cash. They did really well during COVID, and they're putting all the chips on the table to pivot into the American market and do this well. And, I think where I've had some failures in the past is where I've I've believed that, a chairman was going to invest in a company because he told me he was, and then he didn't, rather than actually see the cash on the cap table. And seeing the cash on the cap table, hearing the planning, seeing Danny's commitment, seeing the product, having David Beckham and a host of other influencers now, it all added up to a quantum multiplier effect that we're reaping the benefits of today.
So, if you could, please explain like Prenetics versus IM8 Health and kind of like the different subsects of Prenetics, because it seems like there's kind of a more biotech side of it, and then there's like a consumer side of it.
So Prenetics is primarily life sciences in Southeast Asia, and we have a company called Circle DNA, we have a company called ACT, and we have a company called Incita. And that whole business started in genomics testing. We help people, get their own genomics reports. We have ACT, which if you are diagnosed with cancer, we check your genome to help you and your doctor decide the best course of care. This is a standard of care in many places, but just becoming more popular in Southeast Asia. Those two companies are profitable now and growing. And then we also invested $80 million in Incita with Dr. Dennis Lowe, it's all about the early detection of cancer and making that very inexpensive so that we can scale early detection of cancer, to everybody. And Dr. Dennis Lowe has done this before with non-invasive prenatal screening, and we're using a lot of those similar foundations to do this with early detection of cancer. And his technology is actually also the cornerstone of Grail, which is already doing this in the U.S. So this is going to happen. We sold a $30 million stake to Tencent, who is now applying their healthcare for AI to Incita. So we're accelerating the entire launch of that business. But within the next 3 to 5 years, we will be the dominant player in early detection of cancer with Incita.
Wow. And then tell me more about kind of the consumer side of things with more David Beckham involved and such. How does that fit into everything?
So in North America, the company is originally based in Hong Kong, still based in Hong Kong today. We are transitioning to a U.S. domicile and having the business really be driven by consumer growth in North America. We acquired Europa Sports, which is historically one of the larger nutrition distributors in the United States, and their 3PL Hub Matrix, which is a nutrition 3PL, third-party logistics company. And then we launched IM8, which is a consumer brand that we own outright in partnership with David Beckham, who's a co-founder. And David Beckham owns, around 4% of the total Prenetics enterprise as part of that deal. But what our focus is in North America, and our focus for the business, going forward, is consumer growth. So, brands that are really heavily focused on improving longevity and well-being of individuals, like IM8. We have a daily essentials product and a super reds powder that you put in water and drink. It has 92 ingredients. It replaces about 16 supplements you would take daily. It has pre, pro, and postbiotics, which is we're seeing a big response from consumers. We do a lot of studies. We're doing a study right now, an IRB study on consumer response to using the product. And one of the things we're seeing is that people are using it, 90% or more are seeing a big boost in energy, even though there's no stimulants. And we believe that that's because of gut metabolites through the pre, pro, and postbiotic ingredients we have in there. We're studying about 230 gut metabolites right now to see what's being activated. We're finding some really interesting things that we'll disclose later. But it's really exciting. And of course, we have clinical doses of MSM and CoQ10, which can boost your energy levels as well, particularly if there's a gut metabolite activating it. So I don't want to get too technical, but there's a lot of really cool. I mean, we have a scientific advisory board that includes, we're a partnership with the Mayo Clinic, which rarely partners with supplement companies. Dr. Dawn Muslim there. We've got, from Cedars-Sinai, we have Dr. Suzanne Devcote, is one of the top gut microbiome experts in the world. We've got Dr. Katz from Yale. We have Jim Green, who got our product onto the International Space Station, where we can, test longevity. In space, aging is accelerated. And so it's a great place for us to test our ingredients to show that it actually, can slow or stop aging, which is one of the things we're working on right now. We have a product up on the ISS right now.
I remember looking through your LinkedIn, I don't remember you having a biology degree. Did you ever go to school for biology?
I did a lot of, so I've done a lot of work. I ran the business side of a laboratory in the Napa Valley that does a lot of microbiological work. And we innovated a lot of chemistries, a lot of wet chemistries using microchemistry technology that's now become standard. So I've worked a lot in this space. My father was a doctor. I actually edited in Japan a high-tech and biotech daily news service for a company called Aegis back in the early 90s, one of my first jobs out of college. I've always been I would say I've always been a very good technical writer, and I have a very good grasp of science. And I started coding when I was in grade school. So tech and bio and chemistries have always been something that came kind of naturally to me. I studied philosophy primarily, but I was in a liberal arts program. So you have to take biology, you have to take chemistries. It's an integrated part of your studies. I've been focused more on the business side of those things and being able to articulate what we're doing and how it works. And of course, I work very, very closely. I'm in a daily contact with our scientific advisory board. So, and I've been in formulation, with excess for, most of my adult and business career life. So yeah, it's where I work. I don't have advanced degrees in biology or chemistry.
No, it's amazing though. Still, it's from the philosophy degree to even the tech coding background to the biology. It's like you are like a CEO made in a lab. So no, it's pretty cool, pretty impressive. So yeah, as we kind of start wrapping up here, like what gets you excited about next like 5 years of Prenetics? You mentioned kind of as the one side of the business scaling with Tencent, but yeah, where do you see the North America side scaling up? And yeah, that plus like what other influencers are getting involved? What's the go-to-market category? All that, or strategy, all that.
So we have deep roots in science, and we're transitioning that to a focus on what we're going to be doing in consumer growth and consumer products, so that everything we put out is scientifically backed and based. And we have a scientific advisory board that is deeply respected, that people want to follow and believe. I think for us right now, we're getting a lot of interest. It's almost too much interest in what we're doing, largely because we had a big media launch in January in New York City with David Beckham. We were on the Today Show, CNN. We were on everything, right? And that just attracts a lot of attention, which is great, but it also means you have to be really careful on who you're working with. We have a couple big influencers coming on right now. One's a medical doctor who's let's just say will be the next Huberman. We're excited about, and I won't announce it yet because we haven't signed that deal, but we're close. And we're focused on bringing on more. Ken Rideout just joined us, who's Rideout Agency is really interesting. He's not only a boxer and a marathoner and ultra runner, but a brilliant business person. And he's joined us as an expert influencer, not because we're necessarily looking for him to move a lot of product for us, but for him to attract the right audience that we work with. And so I think for us right now, it's all about credibility. It's about depth of knowledge. It's about knowing the space and showing results scientifically, and also creating amazing experiences. I think for us, here's a little simple fact. So polyglots, people who speak 11 or more languages, the one common denominator is that they enjoy learning languages. There's deep enjoyment. And the reason I bring that up is when somebody, and this goes back to phenomenology and experience, when somebody deeply enjoys something, they'll figure it out. And so it doesnn't matter how well you memorize, it doesn't matter how smart you are, none of those things. It's just, do you love learning languages? You'll figure out how to learn a lot of them. And so I think where we are with this is what we did with Excess, make energy drinks enjoyable, make sports nutrition enjoyable. We've been focused at IM8 on making consuming all of your daily supplements, or at least the baseline of your supplementation, deeply enjoyable. Product tastes great. You feel a difference immediately without being jittery or overly stimulated. And so we're going to keep building on that. We have more new products in the pipeline. We're bringing on, new partnerships. It's accelerating right now. I can't disclose too much that we haven't disclosed publicly about our revenue, but it's on a J curve, and we're really excited about where it's headed this year. Our biggest challenge is just being able to spend as much money as we can, because we always want to have that 4x ROAS. We always want to get 4 times return on ad spend, and the way you do that isn't by overspending; it's by It's by making sure that you have organic reach and organic search happening through, the value that you're adding to the world. And then you're applying cash where you can to scale up and drive the revenue and the sales. And right now we're on a fantastic trajectory. It's early stage. We're a few months in, but we're really excited about what we're going to be able to report Q1, and we'll be at the Roth conference as a major presenter, which will also be great in March. So a lot of great things coming. I'm excited about our transition to being more of a U.S.-driven, U.S.-based business focused on consumer growth, but with deep roots in science based on our origin story back in Hong Kong and Southeast Asia with Prenetics.
Awesome. So, David, if people want to learn a little bit more about what you're up to, where should I send my audience?
They can, the easiest way is Instagram. I'm David58, Daveed 58, or they can go to davidvanderveen.com. That's more about my past than what I'm doing currently. And you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn too, just David Vanderveen or Dave Vanderveen. I'm at all those places, but yeah, and then david.vanderveen@prenetics.com is an email if somebody wants to reach out direct. I think, if people are investors, really simple math is our stock is grossly undervalued and undertraded. So I'm not telling everyone to go buy it, but if you're into buying small cap stocks that have a long and positive trajectory, I think we're going to be one of those.
No, 100%. I think I saw your guys' market cap. It's half it just cash on hand. So you guys are well capitalized, ready to go.
Yeah, so Insighta bought $30 million of our stake in the Insighta project. It brought us down to 35%. Our investment into Insighta is worth $70 million based on the 10-cent investment recently. So the fact that our market cap's right around 70 million, it's I like to say, look, we trade on appointment. The market cap is sort of irrelevant right now, but we are grossly undervalued, even just based on our cash that we're holding on hand right now. So good 100%. Things coming.
And David mentioned his Instagram. It's no joke. He has 500,000 followers, so he's not just some schlub for sure. But so David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For everyone still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement, therefore, by NanoCap Podcast or its affiliates. The NanoCap Podcast Express disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this